She didn't tell him she moved it. $41,000. Gone from their joint brokerage account on a Tuesday morning while Marcus was at work, eating a sad desk lunch, thinking, "We're fine. We planned for this." He found out the way most people find out about the worst things in their marriage. By accident. A notification on his phone at 2:17 p.m. Withdrawal confirmed. $41,200. And the part that broke him, the part he couldn't stop thinking about for weeks afterward, wasn't even the money. It was that she'd been watching the market bleed out every single day for 6 months, and she never said a word. Let me tell you exactly how Marcus and Diane got here, because I promise you, their stories started the exact same way yours did. Two people, one shared dream, a plan they built together on a kitchen table with a laptop, a bottle of wine, and a spreadsheet that made them feel like they finally had control over something. They weren't rich, they were real. Marcus, 34, working in logistics management, making about $67,000 a year. Diane, 32, a dental hygienist, pulling in $52,000. Combined, not bad, not comfortable, but survivable. They had a joint brokerage account they'd been feeding since 2020. Started with $8,000. Dollar cost averaged through the pandemic dip. Felt like geniuses when it hit $41,000 by late 2021. And then the market started doing what markets do. It started lying to them. When the market drops 5%, your brain says, it'll bounce back. It always does. When it drops 12%, you say, okay, this is temporary. Stay the course. When it drops 22%, you stop talking about it at dinner. Diane had been watching their $41,000 quietly become $31,000, then $28,000. Then, on one very bad Thursday, $26,400. Marcus didn't know any of this because Marcus had made a decision that millions of American households make without even realizing it. He had outsourced his financial anxiety to his wife. Not intentionally, not cruelly, but the way you outsource things you're uncomfortable with. He checked the account maybe once a month. Diane checked it every morning before her first cup of coffee. Every single morning. For 6 months. So by the time Marcus got that notification, Diane hadn't just made a decision. She'd been living with that decision for weeks. She'd researched it. She'd calculated it. She'd lost sleep over it. She'd made her peace with it. She just hadn't told him. And here's the question I need you to sit with right now. Is Diane the villain in this story? Because I've been thinking about that question for a long time, and I'm not sure the answer is what you think it is. What happened between Marcus and Diane is not a marriage story, it's an economy story. And it's happening in kitchens and bedrooms all across this country right now in the exact same way, with the exact same silence and the exact same notification that lands like a grenade. Here's what nobody is saying out loud on the financial news channels. Market crashes don't just destroy portfolios, they destroy communication. Think about the last time the market had a bad week, a really bad week. Did you sit down with your partner and go through every number? Did you say, hey, we're down $8,000 this month. Let's talk about our risk tolerance. Or did you do what most people do? You closed the app, you made dinner, you watched something on Netflix, and you carried that number around in your chest like a stone you didn't want to hand to someone else, because handing it over would make it real. Financial anxiety in a relationship is almost always asymmetrical. One person carries it, the other person is protected from it, and neither of them chose those roles consciously. They just fell into them. Usually whoever has more time, more anxiety, or more access to the accounts becomes the unofficial CFO of the household, and that person is drowning. Right now in America, there are millions of unofficial household CFOs who have been watching their investment accounts drop for months. They've been checking their 401k before bed. They've been doing math in the shower. They've been running scenarios in their head while their partner sleeps peacefully beside them, and they haven't said a single word. Why? Because of 3 things. And these 3 things are costing people everything. The first one is protection. The partner who watches the money doesn't want to cause panic. They think, If I tell them we're down $14,000, they're going to spiral. I can handle this. I'll figure it out. So they protect their partner from the information, and the protection slowly becomes secrecy. The second one is shame. Investing was supposed to be the smart move, the responsible move. You were supposed to be the one who figured it out. And now the account is bleeding and you feel stupid and scared. And the last thing you want to do is sit across from someone you love and say, I think I made a mistake. The third one is control. And this is the one that nobody talks about. When everything feels like it's falling apart, when the market is down, when inflation is eating your paycheck, when your grocery bill went from $400 to $680 without anyone asking your permission, sometimes the only thing that feels like power is making a decision, any decision. Diane moved the money because she needed to feel like she was doing something. Marcus didn't know because he'd accidentally told Diane through months of not checking, months of not asking, that this was her problem to solve. This is the hidden pattern, and once you see it, you'll see it everywhere. Now I want to stop here for a second because I need to know where you land on this. Was Diane wrong? Here's the case for Diane. She was watching their shared money disappear in real time. She made a rational decision based on months of observation. She wasn't gambling with it. She moved it to a high-yield savings account. She protected her family. And since when does a grown adult need to ask permission to move money from a joint account? Here's the case against Diane. It was joint money. Joint means two people, two signatures, two voices. One decision made in silence isn't a financial choice, it's a power move. And if Marcus had done the exact same thing, moved $41,000 without telling her, we wouldn't be calling it protection, we'd be calling it financial abuse. So which is it? Drop it in the comments. Team Diane or Team Marcus? Because this is exactly the kind of conversation that never happens in relationships until it's too late. And I'll tell you where I land at the end of this video.
Let's talk numbers now, but not the way financial news talks numbers. We're not going to throw percentages at you and walk away. We're going to feel these numbers. Take the average American household that started investing during the 2020 and 2021 run-up. Let's say they put in $15,000, watched it grow to $27,000, felt incredible, started believing they were finally ahead. A 25% drop from $27,000, that's $6,750. Gone, without them spending a single dollar, without a single decision, just evaporated. But here's the math that actually hurts. That $6,750 isn't just a number. For a household making $60,000 a year, after taxes, that's roughly $46,000 take-home. That $6,750 represents 6 weeks of take-home pay, 6 weeks of groceries, 6 weeks of rent, 6 weeks of keeping the lights on. And because of the way compound loss works, here's what nobody tells you. If your portfolio drops 25%, it doesn't just need to go back up 25% to break even. It needs to go up 33% because you're recovering from a smaller base. Your $27,000 became $20,250. To get back to $27,000 from that number, you need a 33% gain. How long does that take historically? Anywhere from 18 months to 4 years, depending on the crash, depending on the recovery, depending on things you have zero control over. Now let's add the second layer of pain that people like Marcus and Diane are living through simultaneously, because the market isn't falling in a vacuum. It's falling at the same time that rent has increased an average of 26% over the last 3 years in major metro areas. The average American's grocery bill has gone up roughly $200 a month compared to 2020. Credit card interest rates have hit record highs, over 21%, and the personal savings rate in America has dropped to around 3.6%, meaning the average American is barely saving anything even when they're trying. So here's what the real math of a typical Marcus and Diane household looks like right now. Combined income, $119,000. After taxes, take home, roughly $88,000. Annual rent or mortgage, $24,000. And that's being conservative for most cities. Car payments, insurance, gas, $9,600. Groceries and household, $9,600. Utilities and subscriptions, $3,600. Student loan payments, $4,800. Credit card minimums, $2,400. Healthcare costs, $4,800. That's $58,800 in baseline survival costs. They have $29,200 left before clothing, before childcare, before car repairs, before the random $400 emergency that hits every 3 months like clockwork. Now their investment account, the thing that was supposed to be their safety net, their hope, their proof that they were doing something right, has dropped by a third. And one of them has been watching this happen alone every single morning. Do you feel that? Do you feel what Diane was sitting with? That is not a financial decision. That is a person drowning in silence, reaching for the one thing she could grab. And here's the cruelest part of all of this. When Diane moved the money to a high-yield savings account, she probably locked in the loss. Because the one rule of long-term investing that is almost universally agreed upon is that the worst thing you can do during a market downturn is sell. The people who sold during the 2008 crash and never got back in, they missed the entire recovery. The S&P 500 gained over 400% from its 2009 bottom to 2020. 400%. The people who held, life-changing. The people who panicked and sold, they locked in their losses forever. Diane made the most human decision possible, and it may have cost them a decade of growth.
When Marcus got home that night, he didn't yell. He sat down at the kitchen table, that same kitchen table where they'd made the plan, and he said 6 words that started the hardest conversation of their marriage. Tell me what you've been seeing. Not, how could you? Not, what were you thinking? Not, do you know what you just did? Tell me what you've been seeing. And Diane cried. Not because she'd been caught, but because she'd been alone in it for so long that being asked was like being pulled out of cold water. She showed him the spreadsheet she'd been keeping. 6 months of daily balances. 6 months of watching the numbers shrink. 6 months of 2 a.m. calculations and worst-case scenarios. And what if we lose it all? And what if we need this money before it comes back? And Marcus realized something sitting there at that table. He hadn't been her partner in this. He'd been her dependent. Now, I want to be really honest with you here, because this is the part of the conversation that most finance channels won't have with you. The market crash isn't just a financial event. It is a relationship stress test. And right now, millions of American couples are failing it. Not because they're bad people, not because they don't love each other, but because nobody ever taught them how to have a money conversation that didn't turn into a fight, a shutdown, or a silent agreement to never bring it up again. Financial therapists, and yes, that's a real profession, report that money is the #1 source of relationship conflict in America. Not infidelity, not communication, not in-laws, money. And specifically, the secrecy around money, the secret account, the hidden debt, the purchase you didn't mention, the investment decision you made alone, the loss you've been sitting with for 6 months because you didn't know how to say, I'm scared and I need you to be scared with me. Here's my controversial warning, and I mean it. If you do not have a weekly money meeting with your partner right now, in this economy, you are gambling with your relationship, not just your portfolio. I'm not talking about a formal sit-down with a spreadsheet and a PowerPoint. I'm talking about 15 minutes, Sunday evening, 2 phones face up on the table, both accounts open, both people looking at the same numbers at the same time. That's it. Because here's what a weekly money meeting does that no financial advisor can do for you. It eliminates the information gap. Nobody is the secret keeper anymore. Nobody is carrying the anxiety alone. Nobody is making decisions in isolation and calling it protection. It forces a shared risk tolerance conversation because your partner might be far more risk-averse than you realize, or far more aggressive, and you don't know until you're looking at the same screen and one of you says, I can't sleep when it's below this number, and the other one finally understands. And it turns financial fear into financial intimacy. I know that sounds like something off a therapy brochure, but I mean it practically. Money secrets destroy trust faster than almost anything else in a relationship. Shared financial visibility, even when the numbers are bad, builds a kind of trust that is almost impossible to break. Now, the practical side, because you came here for something you can actually do. Pull up every account together, not separately, together. Brokerage, savings, 401k, credit cards, everything. No hiding, no editing. Everything on the table. Agree on a number that means we talk before anyone touches this. For some couples, that's $500. For some, it's $5,000. Doesn't matter. Pick the number. Write it down. That number is now your joint decision threshold. Have the risk conversation before the next crash, because the crash is coming. I'm not being dramatic. Market cycles are not a conspiracy theory. They're arithmetic. The question is not whether your portfolio will drop again. The question is whether you and your partner will be in the same room emotionally when it does.
And if you're the one who's been carrying this alone, if you're the one checking the accounts every morning while your partner sleeps, I need you to hear this directly. You are not protecting them. You are isolating yourself. And isolation in a financial crisis is the most dangerous place you can be. Tell them tonight. Not the perfect version, not the cleaned up version where you have a solution ready. The messy version, the scared version, the I've been watching this and I don't know what to do and I need you to be in this with me version. That conversation is the most financially responsible thing you can do right now. So, Team Diane or Team Marcus? Here's where I land. Diane wasn't wrong to be scared. She was wrong to be scared alone. And Marcus wasn't wrong to be trusting. He was wrong to confuse trust with absence. They both failed each other in the quiet way that good people fail each other. Not through malice, not through betrayal, but through the slow, comfortable assumption that someone else was handling it. Nobody was handling it. That's the real crisis. Not the market, not the inflation, not the interest rates or the recession fears, or the headlines designed to make you feel like the floor is always about to give way. The real crisis is the 41,000 couples right now sitting in the same house, looking at different screens, carrying different fears, and sleeping in the same bed like strangers who once made a plan together on a kitchen table. The market will recover. It always has. The question is whether your relationship will recover from the 6 months of silence that happened while you were waiting for it to. Marcus and Diane are still together. They have a Sunday night money meeting now. 15 minutes, 2 phones, same numbers. And Diane told me she sleeps better now, not because the account recovered, it hasn't fully, but because she's not alone in watching it anymore. That's it. That's the whole story. If this hit you somewhere real today, share it with your partner, not as an accusation, not as, see, this is what you do, just as a conversation starter. Hey, can we talk about our money tonight? 5 words. That's where the recovery starts.